Welcome to the February 20th Council meeting. If you'd please stand and join us in the flag salute. It's going to be led this evening by Councilman George.
Please join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Our first recognition this evening is for Nicholas Ramos. Nicholas, I'd like to call you up this evening. And is your family here with you?
Oh, yes.
Would you like them to come up? All of them. Come on. This is a special occasion. I'd also like to call up Congresswoman Norma Torres to be with us as well. Fine, how are you? Here, squeeze over so everybody gets in the camera. Come over.
Sorry.
I won't bite you, I promise. This is a very, very special recognition. This young man, this very outstanding young man, has been accepted to West Point. So, tonight we have the privilege to present a certificate of achievement to Nicholas Ramos, who was recently accepted to the West Point Military Academy after enduring a rigorous selection process and earning a nomination by our very own Congresswoman Norma Torres. As one of our proud residents, Nicholas has devoted an abundant amount of time serving his community through his ongoing commitment to volunteer at every city event and to help his fellow teens by serving as a member of the Teen Advisory Committee. Additionally, Nicholas has consistently produced an outstanding academic performance, which combined with altruism and integrity made him the clear frontrunner to achieve this great honor. With that, on behalf of the entire City Council, I would like to present you with his certificate of achievement and let you know that we are all extremely proud of you and that you will be representing Chino at West Point. Nicholas, thank you so much. Norma, would you like to say a few words? And then when you're finished, I'd like Nicholas to introduce your family and then you to say a few words.
Of course.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council. Good evening, and everyone in attendance today. I'm so proud to have had the opportunity, the honor to write a letter on behalf of this really great young citizen of Chino. Nick is outstanding in every way that you can think of, volunteers for everything in our office as well as in the city. So Nick, all I did was I wrote the letter in support of him. He did all of the hard work, and it was the support of his family and the community, the City Council, that provided a great environment for him to grow up and thrive into the young man that he is today. So Nicholas, on behalf of my office, I want to present you also with this special congressional recognition, and also your very own West Point flag.
Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. Here, let me hold these for you. And if you'll introduce your family and then please say a few words.
Of course. This is my girlfriend, Maddie Brenis. This is my little brother, Alexander Ramos. And this is my mother, Marissa Ramos, and my grandmother, my grandfather, and my father, Manuel Ramos. I could not have done this without their amazing support throughout this process. This process was quite really strenuous, and there was a lot of moments where it was I was struggling for the process, but without their support, I really appreciate their support. And I would also like to thank the youth mayor. I really and you and the council. Just thank you so much for providing me with the right opportunities throughout the city. Because the programs here for volunteering are just amazing. I really felt like it was a perfect outlet for me to be involved and be a leader for my community. And I'd also like to thank Congresswoman Nora Torres. And it's really, I really appreciate your support throughout the process and writing me this really important letter for me. I really appreciate it. And also the city manager, Matt Valentine, he's really supportive of me and throughout this process. And you're amazing, Matt. Just thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Nicholas, congratulations. Nice to meet you, and thank you for coming this morning. Thanks for all your support of him. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, you'll have to come and give us updates. Okay, next we have another group of very special recognitions. This is for the 2017 Chino Youth Boxing Foundation Award winners. Now, each month, the boxing coaches pick a Boxer of the Month, and tonight I would like to introduce each 2017 Boxer of the Month, their coaches, and acknowledge their accomplishments. First, I'd like to call up our Youth Boxing Club coaches. First is Mark Kaler. He wasn't able to be here this evening. Next is the infamous Ray Morales. Abraham Ortega and Timothy Rambo. Is Timothy here? Is Timothy here?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay. There you are.
He brought his mitts.
Oh dear, we're in trouble. Okay, before I call up, is Yolanda here? Was she able to make it this evening? Or any of the board meeting members? No? Okay. Well, before I read off the names and the months that they are honored with, I'd like you to say a few words about the Boxing Club.
Good evening, everybody. The Boxing Club's been around, as we all know here, for many, many, many years. We strive to promote a harmonious environment for all our kids. We strive for education. Nicholas gone. He's gone, but congratulate him on what he did accomplish. But teamwork, sportsmanship, very important. It's not about winning or losing. We don't emphasize that, right? It's just about giving 100% in your workouts. And if you become a great boxer, great. If you don't, that's okay, because as long as you give out 100%, right? But the most important thing we do strive in our club is education. And that's why I brought, like Nick told these guys back there, hey, that's good footsteps to follow, right? Education is the most important thing. Boxing is just an outlet to exercise, let your anger out if you have any anger, emotions, but most importantly, education. And it's a family environment that we create there. Wherever we go, wherever we travel, everybody looks at Chino Boxing and say, wow, you know, we want to be like you guys, because they see the interaction between the coaches. They see the interaction amongst the kids that we take when we travel. They see how they behave, how they interact. They take care of each other. They're very polite, courteous, and respectful. So that's what we try to just teach these guys and girls. We have a lot of girls there. So, you know, and we want to thank the council, the mayor, the foundation, and everybody from City of Chino for their support. Because without the support of everybody, we wouldn't have a good program. And it's been going on, and I know it's going to go on for many, many years. When I'm gone, it'll still be here. AB will take over. No, not yet. So I just want to say thank you and recognize some of our boxers. Every year we have 12 boxers that we recognize. It's not just for their boxing skill. Like I said, it's for what they do in the program, how they interact in the community. And we also have 3 boxers that we recognize: Boxer of the Year, Most Improved, and Sportsmanship, right? So those 3 are very important to us because a lot of our kids, they strive to reach that Most Improved, Sportsmanship, and Boxer of the Year. So it's tough competition. It makes it hard on us because every year we got to choose 12. So how do you choose 12? 12 out of about 70 participants. Very hard. because we honestly believe that they all deserve it. Every single person in there deserves it. But so we're here to recognize them, and I'll pass it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Ray. They do such a good job. Okay, I'm going to call out the names. Now, the boxers have already received their certificate, so we're going to be presenting them with a city pin tonight. So first, for the month of January and December, Jonathan Torres from Ontario. Little guy. Jonathan, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now you stay up here, okay? Next for February, Eileen Herrera from Chino. You do not want to mess with these girls. Especially this one. Congratulations, sweetie. March is Raul E. Perez, but he is not here this evening, but we'll still get him a pin. For April, Vincent Castro Salgado of Chino. Congratulations, thank you. Okay, May is Alex Zavala, but he also was not able, or is he here? Oh, he's here. Alec? And he's actually from Corona. Alec, congratulations. You did all right. Okay, next we have Ricardo Navarro for June. He's from Pomona. Congratulations. Thank you. July, Yair Matamoras. Did I get that right? From Pomona. Difficult names. Congratulations. Okay, August is Angelo Reyes II from Chino. Congratulations, you're welcome. Okay. September, Victor Guzman from Pomona, but he was not able to be here this evening. October is Jocelyn Fausto. Joycelyn. Joycelyn, right? Joycelyn. She really boxes? Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. November is Priscilla Corona from Chino. Princess. Congratulations. Hey. Okay, and then the 2017 most improved was Yair Matamoros. Congratulations on being the most improved. And then Eileen Torres and Eileen Herrera and Jonathan Torres. Their two boxers took a very special trip recently. I'd like them to step forward with the coaches, please. Jonathan and Eileen. Golly whiz. Okay, they both represented Chino and the Chino Boxing Club at the Silver Gloves National Championship in Kansas City from January 31st to February 4th. Eileen fought in the 108-pound weight class. She won the national title and received a championship belt. There she has her belt to show. Eileen is 13 years old, and she's been boxing with the Chino Boxing Club for 5 years. Jonathan fought in the 60-pound weight class and made it to the semifinals. He's 8 years old, and has only been boxing for 6 months. I want to congratulate you both. These young people are outstanding. I wasn't able to make it to the yearly dinner this year. Sadly enough, I had to miss that. But I've been to several of these events, and you just can't find any more polite, kind people than these young people that are involved in the boxing club. The coaches have done a fantastic job. You set a great example, and you kids you just shine. You just shine, and we're all so very proud of you. I thought it was really important for you to come here this evening and be recognized, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. You're welcome, sweetie. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
It's a phenomenal program. It is phenomenal. It is. Absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm going to ask our city attorney to please report out of our closed session that was held prior to the council meeting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council and audience. The city council met in closed session to discuss both items on the closed session agenda, beginning with item 1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation under the heading Chino MHC versus City of Chino. City council received an update to the status of that matter and no further reportable action was taken. Item number 2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. One item under the heading of significant exposure to litigation. City council was briefed about the threat of litigation and no further reportable action was taken. That concludes the report out of closed session, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Fred. Next on the agenda is public communication. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the council on items that do not appear elsewhere. Our first request to speak is Mr. John Mata from Cavalry Chapel, Chino Valley, and I'd like to invite all those who would like to participate in the invocation to please stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we come before you and asking that you'd be part of this council meeting, Lord. And Lord, we lift up our mayor before you and all the city council members and all those who are involved here tonight, Lord. And we invite you to be part of this city as you always are, Lord, and that you would protect our firefighters, our law enforcement, the first responder teams, Lord, and all those who are here tonight that are representing the different communities, Lord, in this beautiful and wonderful city. Thank you again, Lord, for this opportunity to come before you. And once again, we dedicate this time over to you. We ask for wisdom and guidance. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, our first written request to speak is Melissa Campani.
Good evening, Mayor Yolola, council members, and staff. My name is Melissa Campani, and I am here representing County Supervisor Kurt Hagman. Supervisor Hagman asked me to stop by to make sure to invite you all to his next Coffee with Kurt event. And of course, all residents of the 4th District are welcome to attend. It's a very nice event, and this month's event will take place at the Chino Police Department in the Community Training Room. And that will be Saturday, March 10th from 8 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. The address is 5450 Guardian Way, and that is in Chino. And also as a nice surprise, this will be co-hosted by your own Mayor Eunice Yoloa. So we hope that you can all attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. That was the only written request to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council about items that are not agendized? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Eric Faller. I'm with Borsty Enterprises, and we're an owner of the property over on Yorba and Francis Avenues. And I'm here to just kind of say a few words about the scope of work that you have, that you're going to be taking into consideration under your consent calendar tonight.
That item is going to be pulled and discussed if you'd like to hold your comments till then.
You'll do it then? Okay,
Yes.
fine. I could do that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to address an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, we have a tradition here, and that is students are invited to come up and give us your name, teacher's name, class that you're taking, and the school name, of course. So I would like to invite any students, and I see 3 who are in the audience who are attending our council meeting this evening. Gentlemen. Nothing like putting them on the spot, right?
Well, hello, Madam Mayor. We are representing Cal State Long Beach, and we're here just to kind of understand what a city council meeting is on a day-to-day basis.
And and your names?
Oh, sorry about that. Mario Valdivia.
James Gatlin.
Alex Paz.
And the class that you're taking?
We're taking land use planning in Cal State Long Beach with Dr. Monica Angrada.
Terrific.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being with us this evening.
You.
Gary's alma mater. Is that why they're here?
Yep.
You invited them? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. We will be pulling item 11 and 14 for separate action. Is there a motion for the balance of the council, or of the consent calendar? Motion from Councilman George, second from Mayor Pro Tem Howie. And the balance of the consent calendar passes unanimously. Okay, item number 11 is a request for proposals for the sphere of influence annexation economic analysis. Our staff report this evening will be provided by Nicholas Ligori.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. On October 30th of 2017, the council held a workshop where we discussed a couple of items, and one of them was a discussion of the city's sphere of influence and what action the council would like to take with regard to future development proposals and annexations in the area. The council asked staff to prepare a RFP and obtain consultant services to do an economic analysis of what an annexation of that area would look like and how it should be conducted in phases all at once, retain the status quo, many different options. So before you tonight is a draft of the RFP that is prepared by staff that incorporates all of the items that council requested be studied in the RFP. If the council concurs and authorizes staff to release the RFP, we will send it out to numerous consulting companies that do this type of work. We'll go through a rigorous selection process and get underway probably in April of this year. We anticipate that the work will take about 9 months, and we will report back to the council at a couple of different points and then at the conclusion. That concludes my report.
Okay, prior to questions of council, we do have 2 written requests to speak, one of them being Eric.
Good evening again. What I wanted to do is just kind of, I went through the scope of work that was prepared, and I just had a few comments and some thoughts I wanted to offer for your consideration. So first off, I think that it's important that the study actually take into consideration an analysis of the actual physical feasibility of land within the SOI. I didn't really see that in the study. And what I mean by that is proximity to sewers, proximity to large voltage power lines, areas where streets may not be sufficiently wide enough or there aren't sidewalks, and where road improvements and those type of infrastructure costs may be higher than what would be normally feasible in a project. Also, there should be an inventory of actual lot sizes within the SOI, because most of the lots are small enough where they're not subdividable, especially in an RD2 kind of zoning. And so when you're looking at this, you really should know really what actual could be developed out of that land. The feasibility analysis that I'm talking about is really important because it's the landowners and it's the developers ultimately that pay for the infrastructure, either through physically building the infrastructure or paying impact fees to the city. And without having a sense of really what's feasible in the land that you're actually planning from the owner's perspective, it really kind of makes your study somewhat impractical. So in order to analyze the property tax implications that are referenced in the SOI study, you also should make sure that you're looking at a demand analysis given again, the amount of RD2.5 or RD2 land in the SOI, you're talking about home prices that are dramatically higher than what the actual income levels are and demographics are of the city. And the demand for that product just might not be there. So I think you ought to be looking at pricing and the demand for that pricing. The study seems to be assuming that the current general plan reflects the future of the SOI, and that may not be the case. Some neighborhoods want higher quality, safer, cleaner improvements, and those communities than what exists there now. And this may require densities to change in those areas. And I think that that needs to be studied. I think that there was a toolbox referenced in the SOI, which was, I think, very valuable and smart. I think that that needs to be emphasized and qualified a little bit based on some of the comments I'm making today. Lastly, and I think you were going to cover this, maybe it's just not in the SOI, but a canvassing of the residents of the SOI to make sure that they really want to be annexed. Because I know from our public hearing, several people didn't want to be annexed. And the way that we were going about doing it, we were only affecting our property and not a large swath of properties. So these are just some comments I wanted to add, and I'm going to go ahead. I'll actually send this to the staff directly in an email because there's a little more detail. But I appreciate you listening to my comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. The next request to speak is Vince Otis.
Thank you, City Council members and Mayor. I'm a resident, longtime resident of the City of Chino for over 30 years. I had the opportunity to be a part of the committee that we put together to try to have this project considered that was denied and voted down by the City Council members. I'm here because I still have a lot of concerns with my quality of life as I'm affected by this property being vacant, and so are my neighbors. Many of my neighbors are included in this and are not here tonight, but I got picked as a representative to come up and speak. So we know the city is about to start the SOI, which most areas looks reasonable. I think it needs to be done. I think the northwest part of Chino has been all but forgotten. I think there's a lot of opportunity, not only for redevelopment, but infrastructure improvement, and all of the things that were called out in the project that was proposed by the Chino Francis folks. I think by not having that project go forward, I think that we're going to still be stuck with undeveloped, blighted, and really conditions that I'd like to see improved. The quality of life for me as a resident that lives adjacent to that property is being affected. And I walk the streets every day, I pick up trash, I'm an active community member, and I really want to see improvements that are reasonable and that will take place in this property. We are extremely disappointed at the outcome because we truly don't feel as neighbors adjacent to that property that our concerns were met. I understand the reasonableness and the idea of wanting to have the larger properties, but in this area, after living there in this particular house for over 20 years, I don't think that that's feasible. And I think when you do the study, all of the things that the proposed builder has mentioned needs to be considered. And my concern is that the group that's out there now, and I'll speak directly to the Protect Chino folks, are more interested in the larger acreages, which in today's economy, I'm on a larger acre and I know what it takes to keep that property up, to make it appealing, to make it neighborhood friendly. And I just don't think you're going to get that. I think the proposal that was put forth is reasonable and is one that is viable in a growing community. Revenue.
Mr. Otis, you do understand that what we're considering this evening is the study of the whole sphere of influence, and
I
that
do.
we're not looking at that one project.
I do, and that's the thing that I want to speak to. Getting out in the community and walking these streets like I do, there is a hodgepodge, and I don't know if that's really a word, but I'll use it anyway. There is a whole mixture of properties that could fall into this annexation plan. The county's totally ignored this area, and I think that bringing this into the city's sphere of influence is a good thing. However, I think that each individual property like this needs to be considered for the type of usage. And the Chino Francis Estate Group really met with the community, met with the neighbors there, and I think the package that they put forth was viable, and it was one that we could definitely be proud of and look to as an example of what can be done within the city. So the things that I'm saying here, I think I'm repeating myself. I said this earlier. However, we're still pushing forward with the idea that we want to be involved in this sphere of influence in the selection process in the RFP. I think it's important to us as neighbors, as taxpayers. I think the future of the city lies in the development of sustainable, viable parcels of land that people can come in and raise families. I raise my family in my home. I love it. I don't plan on going anywhere. But, you know, I want to see some consideration taken for this. And I'm hoping that the right thing will be done with the sphere of influence study, and it won't just be one side. You know, it'll be an open forum, and everything will be considered.
Well, I can assure you that it is going to be open and that all aspects are going to be looked at. That's why we're going through this whole RFP study, to ensure that we look at the entire area so that, as you referred to it, hodgepodge development doesn't happen, so that we have continuity in neighborhoods and that things make sense instead of just having piecemeal development pop up, and the transition isn't natural. So we're hoping that, at least I can speak for myself, we're hoping the end result will be a master plan that makes sense so that we can take this whole area in, if that's what's meant to be, and that everybody knows what's expected. The people that live there can count on the lifestyle that either they have or want to have, and people coming into the area know for sure what they're buying into, instead of, you know, you buy this piece of property and you think it's zoned this, then suddenly next door it changes to something else. So we're hoping that the end result of this is a master plan that can be respected and held on to for decades to come.
Well, thank you
and
for that.
There will be public input, council will have input. It's going to be a very open process.
Well, thank you for that. And I just want to remind the current council members and those that have been around for many years, there are quite a few projects that have taken place in Chino that definitely have not benefited this city.
That's right. And that's what we're hoping to avoid now in the sphere of influence.
And we hope moving forward, and I hope I'm not being offensive when I say this, and you live in the northwest side of the community, so I know you're a member of that part. But so many areas throughout Chino have been addressed, and again, that not in my backyard syndrome seems to be a little bit of an influence in some of the process that's taken place in the past. So I'm hoping that we can get some candor, we can open the doors, and that it's an open line of communications, and that everyone's voice in this is heard. And if we have that, then albeit, and wherever the dust settles, we can live with that. But I just want to make sure that it's open, and that we see candor, respect, and that for the people that reside and live in the community on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, council members.
Now, those are the only two written requests to speak on this item. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on item number 11 before we go to council comments?
Eunice, may I come up?
Yes?
Okay. Good evening. My name's Dorothy Pineda. I live at 5606 Francis Avenue, which is in the northern portion of Chino, adjacent to the unincorporated area. I kind of want to say it's all along like Phillips to Pipeline or East End. kind of Francis corridor. But I'd like to congratulate the council, city manager, Nick, and everybody, what you're doing tonight. I believe you're taking a really good step forward in pursuing this analysis of the unincorporated areas of the city of Chino, which is a SOS, sphere of influence. And I fully support what you were doing tonight. I hope that you all unanimously approve this and we can go ahead and move forward. It's going to take a couple of months, like Nick said, but at least you're doing something. It's been a long, long talk about this unincorporated area and how much it belongs to Chino, but it still, really is part of the county. And so it's kind of like, it'll be something great when we finally get this accomplished and get it done and see what the cost is going to be and everything that isn't to take into consideration. And it's a massive, massive job to take upon. I understand that, not just alone the infrastructure, the social, the economical, and also the political aspects of it. So we support this fully. I think you're doing a great job, and I can honestly say with Protect Chino, we are not against development. We are just looking for a very balanced community, a safe community, and I think and I believe sticking to the general plan was the main purpose, so that we all can live in a safe and harmonious community. So good job, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Dorothy. Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on item number 11? Okay, seeing none. Council questions or comments? Gary?
Yes, so I just wanted to, let you know, I appreciate your coming forward this evening, all of you that spoke to this. It is an unbelievably important issue, and I appreciate the way you presented your opinions this evening. And I hope you stay committed to being part of the community that comes forward and works with us on developing this plan, part of the survey and part of the economic analysis. So keep up the good work and thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat everything, but I'm also looking forward to it. Yeah, I just repeated myself. But I'm looking forward to the study, and I think one thing to be as the study evolves, I think it's a work in progress. So there'll be new questions coming in. So whatever initially gets put in, I'm sure there's going to be, well, what if we could do this, and what would happen in this case? So I'm sure that it will be, a major study, but it's going to be a work in progress where things will come up and we'll be able to ask questions and see a bunch of different things. That's it.
Okay. Earl, any comments? Paul?
No comment.
Okay. I did have a couple of comments that I discussed with staff just before the meeting, and that is in speaking about the toolkit, it does say it's going to be a toolkit that the city may utilize to determine what land use changes could be implemented to help increase property tax and other revenue, which would offset service and infrastructure costs for the area in the future on a per acre basis. I don't want that to be misconstrued, that there absolutely will be density changes or zone changes on every piece of property in that area. I know they are going to address Eric's concerns. They are going to be addressing, and Nick, you could address this, please. They will be addressing the current inventory of land that is in the sphere of influence now. The size of the properties, the uses, the current zoning, and all that sort of thing. The toolkit would apparently be items that could be used if any kind of a zoning change might be considered, but it doesn't mean that it has to be considered.
Yes, absolutely. The land use inventory is going to be a complete survey of the area, so we will have a good sense of, the city already has some analytics on parcel sizes and things like that, but this will be a full land use survey of what's actually occurring in the sphere of both residential and non-residential commercial land uses. In terms of the toolkit, the idea with this study is that this would not be embarking on a land use plan. but instead it would be an analysis of what annexation means to the city today. And if there could be things that could change in order to make an annexation more feasible in the eyes of the council. If the council were determined that some form of annexation were necessary, then a subsequent step would be to engage in a land use planning exercise. And that's where we would engage with the property owners and residents in that area and do a full workup to find out what's the vision for the area, what are the priorities for the area, and then move along a land use plan. That's in terms of putting colors on the map, and there may be little change, medium change, lots of change. It all depends upon what the council's priorities are, but first we have to establish a baseline for the council from which to make decisions from, and so that's what this study represents. So this study will not attempt to create a land use plan for the sphere of influence. Instead, it's going to tell us about what this means as a decision for the city to our general fund and to our ability to provide services to the area.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I also want to make sure that the public knows that the council is going to be very involved in this in reviewing and approving phase 1, of course going into phase 2 if we choose to move forward to phase 2, but also the public's going to be very involved in this as well, with workshops, communication, and that sort of thing. This has to be a team effort. It absolutely has to be between the community and the council and the consultants. This is probably one of the most important decisions that we're going to be making for generations to come, is what's going to happen in that sphere of influence. And it's very important that we take it seriously, have all the facts in front of us, and not just look at today, but look into the future on what our vision is for this community. Mr. Elrod, you had comments.
Well, it's my understanding this is basically an economic study, and you're going to look at what the zone is now, and then it all pertains to that zone. We're not looking to see what would be a better use somewhere else or anything like that. We're looking to see what the liabilities are going to be. Construct, if we have to do curves, gutters, and all that. That's what this first study is going to be about.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
But it's also in phases. If the area is annexed and nothing is done, what it would cost for the city to provide the basic services. Fire would stay the same, so it would be police services.
You lost me there. Can you say that again?
There's sections of this study that's going to be done.
A lot of them, but.
So let's say the whole area is annexed. The initial services provided would be police. Okay.
Well, I understand
Sheriff
that.
would go out, police would come
I understand that,
in.
but if the study comes back and says we can't do it, that's pretty much the end of it for me.
Oh, true.
So,
but as you read in the RFP, the consultant will be putting together different, I don't want to say, scenarios, not phases, different scenarios for us to consider. One being minimal services, then some increase that's necessary, et cetera. There's services that are provided now by other agencies, county and that sort of stuff. And so that would be assumed by the city, or there's some that would be continued, such as various trash collectors that then would eventually phase over to just the city's trash hauler. So there's a lot that's going to be looked at.
That happens.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There's a lot to look at with this study. It's going to be very involved.
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez, did you have anything?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Then if there's no other discussion, then a motion would be appropriate. Okay, there's a motion from Councilman George, second from Councilman Elrod, and the item passes unanimously. Item number 14 has also been pulled for separate action, and our staff this evening will be provided by Jesus Plasencia.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. KB Homes proposes a 185-lot residential subdivision on the north side of Bickmore at Meadow House in the Preserve. The project's tentative map received Planning Commission approval back on September 9th, 2015. The final map, which is before you tonight, substantially conforms to the tentative map approved by the Planning Commission. The subdivision agreement, which guarantees the construction of public improvements conditioned by the city, was approved by City Council back on October 17th, 2017. The reason the subdivision agreement was approved before the final map was because the developer wanted to get started with major public improvements, including public storm drain. And that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we have one request to speak. That's Mr. Stubby Barr. Stubby, what happened to your neck?
Oh, it's just routine, precautionary.
Oh,
Actually, little Jonathan got a hold of me, and this is the result.
right.
Thank you, Mayor and Oop, am I too close?
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. This looks like a routine procedure or approval, but I just want to refresh your memory on KB Homes. Now, this is a different LLC, but it falls under the same corporate umbrella. There were 2 tracks in the preserve just north of Bickmore also. They are tracks 17,611, 17,612. They've been fully occupied for about 4 years. However, KB Homes has not completed the public improvements, despite the fact that they have bonds in place and they have subdivision agreements. So I just think, especially with the history of this developer, there should be a time limit of some type in place on the subdivision agreement.
Okay.
You may not remember this. It was pulled March
Yes.
3rd.
Yes.
3 years ago, almost, next council meeting.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Stubby.
Thank you.
Jesus, would you like to address the comment?
I believe the subdivision agreement specifies that the public improvements have to be completed within a 2-year period. There are occasions when the improvements are not completed during that time frame, so it is necessary for staff to coordinate with the developer to extend that time frame if determined to be necessary.
Okay, the important thing is that we get the correct public improvements in a timely manner, of course.
Right. The city is liable for anything that happens due to the fact that those public improvements are not done. We already own the land. They're not going to sue KB Homes. They have better lawyers than we do. No offense, Mr. Sorry.
Wow.
You survived,
Stubby.
survived that theater night. You should be okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stubby. Any questions of council or comments?
No.
Okay, then a motion would be appropriate. Okay. Motion from Mayor Pro Tem Howie, second from Councilman George, and item number 14 passes unanimously. Next, under new business, is item number 17, approval of side letters for the city's represented bargaining groups. Our staff report this evening will be provided by Mr. Anthony Arroyo, our Director of Human Resources Risk Management.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Tonight's staff report is presented to you due to litigation that occurred in the city of San Gabriel that has a wide-reaching impact for all municipalities. The decision in the case, known as Flores versus San Gabriel, dealt with the health insurance funds provided to employees being included in overtime payments. As a result, government agencies must now include such monies when calculating overtime. Approximately 1 year ago, city staff initiated communication with both the police officers and police management associations. Shortly afterward, it was mutually agreed that monies would not be provided retroactively to said groups due to equally harmonious working relationship between the city and both safety associations. In late 2017, an employee inquired about his reimbursement as a result of the Flores case. Because individual employees have the right to be compensated retroactively, the city decided to compensate all affected employees from November 2015 through November 2017. Because this is an FLSA case, we were required to go back 2 years. Pending tonight's decision, the city will provide a one-time payment of $231,202 to approximately 176 employees. The affected 5 bargaining groups have already signed the respective side letters codifying the agreement with the city's decision. If approved, the city manager and I will sign the side letters on behalf of the city. Lastly, the payroll system has been corrected to now include health insurance monies in the calculation of overtime for those affected employees. That concludes my presentation, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Anthony. Questions of staff or council comments? This is not a public hearing, but I would like to ask if anyone in the audience would like to address the council on this item. Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion. Moved by Councilman George, second by Councilman Elrod, and the item passes unanimously. Item number 18, reduction of unfunded liability obligation. Staff report will be provided by our Director of Finance, Mr. Rob Burns.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight, staff would like to recommend a fully vetted idea that will help reduce the city's projected annual pension increases as identified by CalPERS. And we'd like to run through a short PowerPoint presentation for you. So what we're talking about is our pending unfunded pension obligation. We've been kind of warning about this for the last couple of years in the budget process, and we're at the beginning of the uphill trail as per annual pension expenses. And so the city of Chino has a total unfunded pension obligation. Right now, well, in 2015, we had a $60 million unfunded pension obligation. 1 year later, that jumped up to $81 million. That increase was a result of two things. PERS expected to earn 7.5% on their investments that year, and they only earned 0.6%. So that increased our unfunded liability, as well as PERS's decision to reduce the discount rate or the amount that it earns on it's expected to earn on its investment portfolio. And then as you see in 2017 and 2018, the amount creeps up a little bit, and that's due to the fact that we're basically in a negative amortization situation. We are not paying as much annually as the debt is accruing. And so our unfunded liability is increasing each year because of that. So in 2018, we have a total unfunded liability of $86.4 million. PERS charges us on that outstanding unfunded obligation at a rate that's currently its discount rate. Right now, it's 7.375. It's going to be dropping down to 7% in a couple of years. So essentially, we have a mortgage of $86 million that has a 7% interest rate attached to it. And so that interest is another $96 million over a 30-year period for a total of $182.5 million that the city would have to contribute to PERS to eliminate its unfunded liability. So the way they get us to eliminate our unfunded liability is by increasing our annual payments. And so you'll see here the red line is the PERS determined annual payment expense. And so you can see it's going from $8 million in 17-18 to a projected, for the red line, it's $14.7 million in 24-25. Now, moving forward with this idea to reduce our expense, we hired an independent actuary, Bartell and Associates, to independently analyze PERS's information so that we knew that the information that PERS gave us was valid and we could kind of count on it, and that was what would be expected. And Bartell and Associates came back and said, well, lo and behold, we think it's going to be even more than PERS is saying. And the reason they think that is because Bartell is using what they consider to be a more realistic discount rate of 6.2%. PERS is saying they'll earn 7%. And so Bartell thinks that they won't earn that 7% over the long term. So they're actually showing an annual expense more than PERS is. So hence, what do we do about this? It's a lot of extra money. We're talking $8 million to $16 million. That's $8 million more per year that we would have to contribute to or give over to PERS. And so essentially what we want to do is kind of think of this as like a mortgage. if you have a mortgage, there's a couple ways that you can reduce your monthly expense. You can pay down your mortgage if you've got the money. Anything that you pay towards your mortgage principal will then reduce your monthly payments if you refinance a lower amount. But the issue with that is you're giving a lot of money over that you can never get back. So once it's gone, you never get it back. Or you can basically refinance your mortgage. So if you have a 7% mortgage and you refinance it with a 2% mortgage, you, in essence, lower your payments on a monthly basis, and you end up saving a lot of money. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking here, is we want to essentially refinance our mortgage. And so the question becomes, well, where do you get that money? Well, the city has an investment portfolio of about $180 million on a monthly basis. About $54 million of that is invested in long-term investments, which that means anything from 1 year to 5 years. So that money's not available. It's tied up in other investments. But we have a remaining amount of about $125 million that is invested in shorter-term investments to maintain cash flow needs and those kinds of things. And so what we're proposing is that we utilize $69.1 million of that $125 million to invest in a city-issued note, which would have a 20-year repayment period and which would earn interest, and that interest would be paid back to the city, that 2%. And so that would essentially, then we would use that money to pay off our 80% of our outstanding PERS unfunded liability, and that would essentially refinance our mortgage from 7% to 2%. And hence a significant amount of savings. If we look at the next slide, this shows 3 lines below the blue line, and those are all the new annual payment expense based on the amount that we would pay off. The red line is a 90% payoff of our unfunded liability, so that results in the lowest annual expense. The green line is 80% payoff, and that's kind of what we're recommending right now, is an 80% payoff. And there's various reasons for that, but we think it's the most financially prudent. And then the purple line would be a 70% payoff, which would be a little bit more annual expense each year. But the green line, so the difference between the blue line and the green line would be the annual savings that we would experience by essentially refinancing this mortgage with city-held funds. And so the pay down amounts are shown here. If we use $69.1 million in the middle, the blue bar, we would save $61.5 million, which is the red bar. If we did a present value calculation on that at 2%, we'd be talking $45.5 million that we would save by doing this. So we think that's a significant amount that would help the city out tremendously. So if we send out $69.1 million to PERS, the question becomes, does that impact the city's cash flow needs? Is it hinder us in any way? And basically what we're showing here is the annual repayment on the outstanding note plus the savings differential that would not leave the city as it would have otherwise to be paid to PERS would result in a 7-year period of 65% of the amount, the $69.1 million, being replenished into our investment portfolio. So it's a pretty quick replenishment. So we don't believe it's going to have any negative cash flow implications on the city. We have spoken with staff. There's no large expenditures on the horizon that would create any kind of cash flow issues for us. So taking $69.1 million, sending it to PERS wouldn't have a negative impact on us, we don't believe. And so that's kind of the short presentation. I can entertain any questions if you'd like, or I can read the recommendation.
We do have a finance committee that reviewed this information prior to coming to us. I'd like to go ahead and have them report out, and that is Councilman George and Councilman Howie. Jennifer.
All right. Thanks, Rob, for the presentation. I mean, these are really scary numbers. Okay, these are, and every city in California has these, scary, even scarier numbers than we have. And what I don't quite understand, some cities are not really doing anything about it. They're just, I guess they've been waiting to see what's going to happen, a miracle. Some cities are issuing bonds that their citizens will be obligated to, which I wouldn't go for. And like I said, the mayor said, Mayor Pro Tem Howie and I have on the Investment or Finance Committee. So we've met a couple of times with Rob Burns and Matt Valentine regarding this plan, just to kind of hash this out. I think it's a very unique and very sound idea. I actually can't figure out why other cities haven't come up with it. I guess we have a brain trust that's better than other cities. I think we really do. And I think this is a great way to counteract what's coming in the future, because it's going to be, it's unbelievably scary what's coming up besides these numbers. Thanks. Cheers.
I think we do have a pretty good brain trust. It reminds me, a couple of years ago, Councilman Duncan and I, we looked at, and the rest of the council looked at possibly paying $10 million down on our pension when we had no idea that our pension deficit was so high. We thought this would be great. We just paid $10 million down. We'll save $300,000 or $400,000 a year in interest costs, and that would be, and then we never did it. But I don't think we realized how big the pension costs would be to the city. When you're looking at another $6 to $8 million a year, that's pretty scary for us. When you have to start looking at, well, where are we going to come up with the money? And where and most cities would have to start cutting services. I mean, we don't want to cut our public safety. We don't want to cut our public works. We don't want to cut our recreation and community service programs. So, and this $6 to $8 million in a few years is going to be a major challenge to the city because it's expensive to run a city, and prices don't go down. Prices continually increase in our city. So. This actually, I kept looking at this and thinking, I don't, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to prepay some of this stuff and save the kind of money. And with the 65% repayment within just 7 years of 84 months or whatever that is, it doesn't put us out in a real negative or a chancy situation for the city. So, I don't think it would have been wise to pay 100% of it, because those numbers that we saw, those numbers aren't set in stone. They're going to change a little bit. Some of those years, the PERS retirement system will earn a little extra money, and it would benefit us. So by leaving that that 20% there, if the PERS does better, then we're not going to overpay into PERS, because there was a city when we went to Sacramento last year that was complaining to PERS that they had completely paid off their obligation, and then they still had to make their regular contribution to PERS, but it was penalizing them by having it all paid off. So this 80% makes sense. It's going to save the city a lot of money.
Well, I agree with this deal here. We've got the money we ought to thank God we had the money sitting in the bank.
Yep.
That's why other cities can't participate in it. Right. The thing that irritates me the most is I love the way PERS can't make 0.5% interest on their holdings and turn around and charge us 7%. That's where they're making it up, is off the backs of the cities.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's a typical Sacramento deal, but I do think this is a good plan, and I'm for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, I had the great pleasure of meeting with my city manager last week, and in his explanation, I see the plan as being very innovative and very useful in the sense that it is embracing the vision of our city of Chino, that we are to serve the people's needs and also to entrust that we are providing services that are going to continue to service the people, all the people in the city of Chino. So I concur with all my colleagues here that it's a very, very good plan, and it's very innovative and progressive.
Rob, just to give a comparison for the public, our debt of approximately $82 million for unfunded liability, how does that compare to other communities of our size?
I I think it's about average. I mean, I couldn't really tell you because there's a lot of variables. It depends if you have police and if you have fire. Those that have police and fire usually have much larger unfunded obligations. We have one safety operation, so ours is probably lower than, say, Ontario, who would have both fire and police. So it's not really, can't really be compared. It's all unique situations. A lot of agencies have different plans. So our classic plan is 2.7 at 55. Some cities only have 2.5 at 55 or 2% at 55. So it depends on what plans the cities had adopted over the years. So there's a lot of variables. Every city's going to be different.
I know years ago, PERS was making phenomenal rates on their investments. And so we had the pleasure of not paying into the funds, correct?
Yeah, back in 2000, we were actually 160% funded. So we were what they called super funded. At the time, that meant you would never have to make another payment to PERS, but that changed rapidly.
That's when the mortgage prices hit.
Yes. So we went from being super funded to now horribly in debt because of retirement funds.
Yeah, we are about 71% funded right now. So that $86 million is the 29%. So it's a big amount of money that we have in trust with CalPERS. And, you know, the negative thing for us or any agency is that we have to pay interest on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think the recommendation from the investment committee and along with staff is a very wise one. Again, you had an excellent comparison to your own home mortgage. So if you chose to go from a 30-year to a 15-year at a lower interest rate, paying, you know, over a short amount of time, you can save an incredible amount of money, and that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Is using our own money to save money, and getting it almost 100% repaid in 7 years is phenomenal.
Well, it won't all be repaid in 7 years. 65% of it.
65% in 7 years. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And
now, does this at all leave us in any kind of jeopardy moving forward as far as our fluidity or anything? Is staff pretty sure that we're going to be okay moving forward?
Yeah, we've discussed this at length. We really believe that we're going to be totally fine. You know, I've researched the past 15 years of our investment portfolio, and every year our investment portfolio balance has increased. That means that we're basically each year we're bringing in a little bit more than we're taking, you know, we're spending. And that's not just general fund, that's across all funds. And so we've never had a situation where our investment portfolio balance decreased to any kind of a level. It's always increased, and we would have to experience some very significant decrease. I know when we were vetting this whole process out, you know, really the only thing that we could be in jeopardy for is if the big earthquake hit and, you know, we needed a huge infusion of funds. That's really the only thing that could jeopardize us.
Okay. What has been our average return on investment on our portfolio?
Well, average over the last 15 years has been about 2.5%. I actually have a slide if, Angela, you want to. So this is a slide of our historical rate of returns. So back in 99, 2000, we were earning 6.5%. Those days are long gone.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see the blue line is what we've actually returned. The red line is the average over that entire period. But for the last 7 years, we've only been earning 1% to 1.5% total return on our investment portfolio.
Okay, so this, with us taking money out of our investment portfolio, paying down the unfunded liability, and then paying ourselves back the 2%, actually still maintains our interest earnings, so to speak. It'll decrease our principal.
Yeah, it actually is going to bump up our interest earnings a little bit because now about a third of our portfolio is going to be at 2%. We only have about, I'm guessing about 10 or 15% of our portfolio right now that's earning 2% or above. We are in an interest rate increasing environment. When we originally were bringing this idea forward, I had the loan at 1.5%. but rates have been ticking up. The Fed's been increasing the rates, and so we felt it was prudent to up the amount to 2%, and that would, be a more realistic rate. It's still a low rate for a 20-year investment, but the interesting thing is, since we're borrowing from ourselves, if we increase the interest rate to 3%, essentially it's just an offset. We're paying more back to ourselves, recognizing that as interest, but we're paying more on the loan, recognizing that as expense.
Right.
So it's just an offset. Whatever rate we choose is just really an offset.
Okay.
It's an income on one side and expense on the other. So, because we're borrowing from ourselves, it really almost doesn't matter, but, we do want to make sure that the funds are receiving a decent rate of return on the money.
Now, you mentioned that approximately $120 million of our investment portfolio right now is in short-term investments. So this amount that we pay down, the $69 million, will reduce that $120 million.
Correct.
And again, I want to emphasize that will not put us in any jeopardy
No, because
paying bills or meeting our needs over the next,
Right.
decade?
We'll still have another $50 million in short term, plus we have about $54 million in longer term investments that mature each month.
That could be converted to short-term if we needed to.
Well, they can't really be converted to short term
As they
except
mature,
within their
they could.
maturity schedule.
As
Yeah.
they mature, they could, though.
Yeah, as they mature and they, we could not reinvest that long term and we could keep that short term. But really, for cash flow purposes, we only need about $10 million because we have periods where property tax stops. And so, we're still spending money, but property taxes have stopped coming in. Then in November, property taxes they begin to come in, and we're getting sales tax. And so there's just about $10 million that we need to cover some of those interim periods.
Okay.
Essentially, everything else is there for, when we need it, for whatever the funds are doing and, have plans to do. And so I don't see any, aside from the big earthquake, there's really no risk here.
Okay. And one last question. It used to be, before California changed the law, it used to be that the city covered all of the employee expenses for CalPERS retirement. But now there's what they call PEPRA that has come in to where the employees are required to pay a certain percentage of that amount, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So PEPRA employees pay half of the cost of the retirement benefit. And even, you were correct, the city used to pick up the employee portion. Beginning this July 1st, the employee will be picking up 100% of their portion. That's been changing over the years, and so the city will no longer be paying any portion. Right now, it's a very small percent. It's just, I think it's 1% for miscellaneous and 1.25 for police.
Okay, and for public benefit, can you define what a PEPRA employee is?
Yeah, PEPRA employee is it's a plan that the governor of California implemented, and it dictates all agencies in the state of California, whereas it used to be any agency could pick and choose what formulas they wanted. Now PEPRA applies to all state employees, all city employees, all district employees, and it's a much reduced retirement plan. So for our classic employees, for miscellaneous non-safety employees, we have 2.7 at 55 years old. The PEPRA plan is 2% at 62 years old. So it's a reduced percentage, and it's an older individual before they can actually retire to get that full 2%.
Okay, and a PEPRA employee then is anyone hired after a certain date, correct? That
Yeah.
hasn't already been enrolled in PERS?
Yes, a new
And what was
member
that
to
date?
PERS. It's like 2013.
Okay.
Please don't quote me on that, but it's about 2013.
Okay, thank you.
So finally, I was going to say that our city attorney has vetted all this, but I probably think I should get KB's attorney to look at this before we do anything else.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
I'll remember that, Bob.
Good heavens. Poor Fred.
Yeah.
See what you did, Eric? Tom, you had something to
Yeah,
say?
I just want to make a quick comment about the interest rate that the city earns on our money. For those of you who don't know, half a point, 1%, 1.25%. How come we're only earning that kind of rate when you can get better rates on longer term investments? And we're governed. The city must put in extremely very conservative investments so that we don't do what happened in the 80s to Orange County when they did when those entities were buying junk bonds at 14 and getting 15%, and they lost millions and millions of dollars. So the city has to be extremely conservative with our investments, and that's why most of our investments are only earning 1% or 1.5% and 2%, and so that's been kind of a hindrance too. But the good news is the money's safe. And so that's the most important thing, is the safety of your principal from that. And one thing I was thinking about was medical science. I don't know, nobody's ever mentioned medical science, but I think the employees are living longer, and those payments are going out much where they were 20 or 30 years ago. It seems like people are living longer with the advents of medical science, and that does kick into longer payments and more exposure and more costs. So that's just my 2 cents there. Okay?
Okay. All right. If there's no more discussion, then a motion would be appropriate. It's a motion from Councilman George, second from Mayor Pro Tem Howie, and the item passes unanimously. Item number 19, authorization to apply for funding from the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Review Committee, or MSRC, for the purchase and installation of electric vehicle charging stations. Jose O'Leary, our Assistant City Manager, Public Works Director, will provide our staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Angela, can we get the PowerPoint up, please? So before you tonight is staff's proposal to apply for grant funding through the MSRC and South Coast Air Quality Management District for electric vehicle charging stations. Part of the requirements of this application is to present this PowerPoint to you, which I'll get to in just a second, so that we can comply with all the requirements of the application. But before I get into that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on this project and why it's here before you. So a few years back, the city invested in electric vehicles, the Chevy Volts, if you recall that. And ever since that point, staff has been looking at electric vehicle charging stations, not only for our own fleet, but also for the general public to go and visit our facilities. And we certainly do recognize that there is a whole different element that comes in when you open it up to the general public, and that is the finance department would need to come in and look at how we're going to process collecting for the electricity that's being purchased. So we were in the midst of all that, and we continue trying to develop a plan to implement. And fortunately, this grant became available. We started talking to the MSRC and AQMD, and they really liked our project, and that's why it's before you tonight. And at this point, I'll just get into the PowerPoint slide to give you a little bit about the program and where we're headed with this, and then I'll open it up for questions. So the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Review Committee, that's why I like the acronym MSRC, was established by California legislature in 1990. And the mission of the MSRC was to invest funds to reduce air pollution generated by mobile sources, cars, trucks, vehicles, what have you. And they're collecting the funds through a surcharge through the motor vehicle registrations. And that's actually through the AQMD. So the MSRC invests these funds on clean air projects that support the South Coast Air Quality Management District's objectives and priorities. Our project is one of those that support that. This next slide is pretty much telling you that there's a lot of smog in Southern California. If you look towards the top, there's the word extreme there. And that's telling us we need to do something, invest in reducing smog in Southern California. Now, I'll be the first to admit there's a lot of information on this slide, and I have no idea what it all means. Please don't ask me any questions on this slide. Having said that, no. This next slide is pretty telling. The plan is, if you look at the purple line going down, that's our baseline that the South Coast Air Quality Management District has set. And with these MSRC funds, they're looking to get it down even further. And by 2023, their goal is to reduce it an additional 45%. So how do you do that? You do that by reducing smog in the air, like the other slide indicated. We have a lot of it, and we have various programs and opportunities to do that. The South Coast Air Quality Management District has done that with their air quality management plan. A type of project like what we're proposing is one of those projects that will help reduce smog, as well as many others that are out there. So we reached out to them, and they really, like I said earlier, liked our project, and they're looking to fund our project. What we have before us is they're telling us they can fund us up to $168,000, and our local match is $81,000, which comes from the AB 2766 subvention funds that are provided to the city through South Coast Air Quality Management District. So they're looking for this partnership with all of us to move a positive project to reduce smog and improve our air quality. And this program is completely voluntary, so the council, you're not required to go after these funds, but it is staff's recommendation to do that because these electric vehicles, the technology is growing. Our general public, our residents are using these kind of cars. Our fleet, eventually will grow with more of this technology, and again, it's a good partnership because at the end, it helps reduce smog in Southern California. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Questions or comments? Mr. George.
Okay, Jose, just the charging stations, these are only at the city yards, or?
They're at, right now the plan is, and it's a fluid plan at city facilities, so we've identified 5 of them and approximately 2 at each to come up with a cost estimate that we submitted to MSRC. But they are going to be flexible with us. So as that plan develops, we can certainly bring it back to the city council for consideration.
Okay, and I think I just heard you're talking about 2 at each, 2 stations at each.
Right, approximately.
Okay, that's where I was going with this, because if you've been to Kaiser, right over here, beautiful facility, or read the article on it, there's probably, what, a half a dozen or 8 charging stations right there where it just seems like an overuse of the charging stations for the amount of traffic that they get there. I just wanted to make sure. When I heard 2, that's great. I just didn't want to have like a half a dozen at each one of those locations. Or
yeah, we're approaching this cautiously. I mean, there's a lot of requirements that we're going to need to meet, and these are the things that we're going to learn as we go through the process. I know that we have to have charging stations for accessible vans. So when you do something like that, the whole design is going to be much different than, another vehicle that it needs to get charged as well. So there's a lot that we're going to be complying with, and again, we'll be bringing those plans forward as we award contracts.
Thank you.
Other comments? San Bernardino County Transportation Authority put in some charging stations, and they did quite a nice report on how they're going to recoup the electrical costs. I think I sent that, or you have a copy of it, I believe. You mentioned that we don't have it figured out yet, how we're going to recoup those costs. So I would request that you review what they've already done. There's no sense in us recreating something that may be already in operation that would work for us as well.
That's a great suggestion. We'd be happy to do that.
Okay, because there has to be a way to recoup our costs on that. It can't be just free. Okay. No questions? I think it's a great idea. There are people out there, obviously, with electric cars, and one of the problems is charging them. And I understand there's like a fast charge or a slow charge, and ways that, triple charge, ways that that you can trigger so that people can't just hook up to it and leave it there all day. So it's going to be interesting to see what staff comes up with. Okay, and with that, I would entertain a motion. There's a motion from Councilman George, second from Mayor Pro Tem Howie, and this item, Also passes unanimously. Okay, next on the agenda is mayor and council reports. To begin with, I'd like to give one last reminder that the Chino Youth Museum's Derriere 5K, 10K, and Fun Run will be happening on Saturday, March 3rd at Ayala Park, beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning. Additionally, I'd like everyone to please make note that all those who register after this Saturday, February 25th, will be required to pay an extra $5 for each event registered. So please make sure you register early. For more information, call 909-334-3270. Also, please note that on the following Saturday, March 10th, the city will have its annual Cultural Palooza event right here at City Hall lawn from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. This is one of our most anticipated and unique events that allows every Chino resident to learn more about and enjoy the various cultures that make up our great community. So for more information about the Cultural Palooza, please call 909-334-3258. And lastly, we will be adjourning tonight's meeting in memory of a longtime Chino resident and former council member, Martin Salgado, who sadly passed away earlier this month, on February 8th, actually. Yeah, he just passed. I asked his daughter, Christina, to provide me with some information last minute on Martin, and I'd like to read what she prepared for me. Martin Salgado was a native son of Chino, born July 3rd, 1926, to a loving family of 12, and one more after him, equaling 14. He was raised to love and cherish his family and worked hard as a young man to help maintain the family home. Meanwhile, very involved in his church. He continued his education to the 9th grade, where he went into the labor force due to necessity for those times. He continued to work and continued to be very active in his community. His church, Our Lady of Guadalupe, was one of his mainstays. In September of 1944, he enlisted into the United States Army and proudly served until October 1946. He was honorably discharged. He earned several medals, some of which were the Felipe Liberation Medal, Asiatic Pacific Campaign, Army of Occupation Medal, World War II Victory Medal, and Good Conduct Medal. When he came home, he joined the choir so that he could meet and get closer to the love of his life, Petra Padilla. They were married 59 years and bore 5 children. They have 8 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. Petra passed a number of years ago. They also lovingly added several loved extended grandchildren and great-grandchildren that they took under their wings. Martin's accomplishments were many, but the love of family, church, community were abundant. Everyone he met was loved and cherished. His community was important, and he worked hard to make a difference. Martin was part of our council for a short time. He was appointed to the council on April 21st, 1998, and served until December 1st. When he was appointed, it was a very tumultuous time on the city council and within our community. There were many issues out there which forced one of our council members to resign. And I felt that it was particularly important to appoint someone to fill that vacancy until the election in 1998 who would be a peacemaker in the community, and Martin was that. Extremely intelligent man, very ethical, very strong man with very strong ties to the community. He'd lived here his whole life. And he was very instrumental way back in I think it was the 50s or the 60s when there were some killings at Our Lady of Guadalupe. His family was very, very instrumental in stopping all of that, and he and the Pondos, the Salgados and the Pondos worked very close with the police department at that time to stop a lot of the gang activity that was going on, the Chino Sinners. I had the privilege of being very close to Petra and his wife, his wife Petra and Martin, and also Nacho and Josephine Pondo. Really, really good people, very strong pillars of the community. Beyond his service as a council member, Mr. Salgado also was active in youth sports and worked tirelessly to peacefully alleviate the spread of gang activity that he saw developing in the city many years ago. Moreover, during his time on the council, Mr. Salgado sought to represent the needs of our community's seniors while encouraging all of our community members to engage in the public process to better our city, and he is really going to be missed. Wonderful, wonderful man. So we will be adjourning in his memory. And then on other subjects, I would like to congratulate JB and Claudia Aguirre on their 47th anniversary. So that's pretty exciting. Then on February 7th, I attended Omnitrans and the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority Board of Directors meetings. On the 8th, I and several council members, in fact, all of us almost, attended the Police Department Awards, and I'm hoping that Karen will add some information on that. What a tremendous event. We have a fantastic police department, but I also have to compliment our Chief Karen Comstock. She goes out of her way to recognize our good members, and that means a lot. It means a lot to our community, means a lot to our police department, and Chris Wolf did a phenomenal job of emceeing the event. It was very touching to hear what our police department has gone through during the prior year, and it just reminds me how fortunate our entire community is to have such a fantastic department. Also on the 8th, I also attended the appropriate pool meeting at Watermaster. On the 9th, there was the dedication of IV2 at College Park, and so I don't hog the whole show. I'm going to let Gary report on that. That was quite a unique event also. On the 13th, myself and Ariana and Monica Gutierrez, we presented a letter to Gloria Smith, who has been nominated as our Spirit of Achievement Award winner this year, and she'll be honored at the State of the City address. Gloria got quite tear-eyed at the presentation, just super special lady. On the 15th, I was able to attend the Student Government Day for about a half an hour, and then I had to leave for the advisory committee, and Councilman George and Councilman Rodriguez were there at that, so they'll be reporting with more information. And then like I mentioned, I attended the advisory committee at Watermaster. That was also followed by the 2000 Recharge Master Plan Update Steering Committee meeting at Watermaster. On the 18th, which just this past Sunday, I attended the Bread of Life Chinese Christian Church's Chinese New Year event. I was not that familiar with Chinese culture, and so it was very enlightening, very interesting. That congregation's incredible. They've only been in their facility, it's not quite 2 years, and they've already grown like 57%. The pastors are Kathy and Fonda Chang, fantastic people. Unfortunately, Fonda was not there because he was in the hospital with a gallbladder operation. But Bob and I attended the event. Like I said, it was very, very interesting, very colorful. And Kathy presented me with, I have to show you this, a traditional Chinese vest. Absolutely beautiful. I was very honored to receive this. It was a fantastic event. I just can't say enough about it. People were so warm and so friendly, and it's the Year of the Dog. I'm not sure of the significance of the dog. I have more to learn, but it's the Year of the Dog, which is really cool because we have dogs, as I'm sure a lot of people do. So, but it was really a happy event. And with that, then, I will turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Halley.
Okay, thank you. Did you give Sparky a treat for him being Year of the Dog?
No, he's spoiled enough. He doesn't get special stuff.
All right, let's see. I attended the Chino Police Department Awards, which Eunice has already mentioned. An excellent program as always. Karen does a great job, and it's just interesting to hear all the different challenges that the police department has. You don't hear a lot of them, but it's just amazing what a job they do. So congratulations on that. I attended the Kiwanis play on the 10th, and there's a number of city employees that participate in the Kiwanis, and it's a fundraiser for Kiwanis, and always a comedy, always funny, corny, and they have Nick's red face back there. He had a large part. I don't know how you learned all those lines, but you delivered them very well, and the Kiwanis, the guys did a great job. Let's see, and Harvey, of course. Harvey, great job as usual. I think that's your 17th play in a row or something like that. Yeah,
More than that?
19, 153rd play. Congratulations, Harvey, on that. And of course, the Kiwanis Club does a great job with that. And the SBCTA meeting and the CDA meeting, I attended those. And then last Friday, Congresswoman Torres, I almost said that word, and she invited me to have a meeting at her office with a couple of Caltrans people talking about the 71 corridor, and it was interesting to see, they kind of showed some of the projects that the 71 is going to go through in the next few years, and of course the people in Pomona definitely would like that two-lane, they don't call it a freeway, it's an expressway. And as you know, they asked me, well, how do people in Chino like driving up there? And I said, well, I can't speak, but I try to stay off it as much as possible because I don't like sitting for 10 minutes in that traffic going north on the 71. Their Caltrans has plans probably in the next 5 to 7 years to convert that to a full freeway, 4 lanes each way, with pedestrian over things, and they're working on that. Of course, funding is always an issue, but I think that would, if they can get that part of the 71 operating as a freeway, that would free up a lot of traffic in the area. And then, of course, we talked about south at Riverside County, widening that, and they're again, that's a challenge with Riverside County, Caltrans, and the funding to get that widened. So eventually it's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be the next week or the next couple of years, but eventually all that's, those freeways will open up, and of course we'll have more people by then, so it'll still be a traffic jam. But hey, anything's better if we can get that going. And so that's it. That's what I have.
Okay, Councilman Elrod,
I have no report.
Councilman George.
I have a report. On the 7th, attended the Chino Rotary four-way speech contest with the students from the Chino Valley Unified School District vying for scholarships. Always a great event. On the 8th, of course, we've already covered the Chino Police Department award ceremony. I have a little side story on that one that I'm going to share. The Officer of the Year at that event, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder there, Karen, but the Officer of the Year was Officer Mayberry. And so got a chance to meet her and talk with her and congratulate her on the award. And then Friday night, a little after midnight, our house alarm went off, scared Deborah and I to death. Our alarm company called the police department also, when we were on joint conversations there, and the speed with which the police department got to our residence was phenomenal. It was just, I couldn't believe it, and there were like 5 police cars there, and luckily it was a false alarm. We still don't know what caused it, but it was a false alarm. But it looked like somebody was trying to get into our back door. But when I finally was able to, they let me open the door and invite them in, make sure nobody was inside. Lo and behold, there was Officer Mayberry, and I congratulated her again on being Officer of the Year and thanked her for coming out to my residence, and I got a card. So the evening was not a total loss. Okay, as the mayor said, we attended on the 9th the Ivy 2 Bridge Housing grand opening. Besides the normal, presentations that always come with those grand openings, there was a kind of a unique one. Was one of the residents gave a presentation on how it changed her and her husband and her family's life, and it was just really heartwarming because of the fact that they were able to find some place that they could afford and to put their family in. And it's a beautiful facility. It changed everything in their lives, and now they're going forward from there. On the 10th, attended Assemblymember Rodriguez's coffee at the community building with Tom and Paul. We sat apart, so, you know, no problem. A lot of great issues came up about, well, not great issues, a lot of issues came up regarding the city, and I think we handled them very well, especially Assemblymember Rodriguez. On that evening, of course, $1 Million Meatballs, the Kiwanis play was fantastic. Nick was Beans, had a mustache at the time, and Harvey was the stuck-up waiter. And it looked, Harvey, I swear, it looked like you had hair. It was amazing the way they fixed your hair.
Oh my God.
Great job, though. On the 13th, I chaired the oversight board meeting for CIM and CIW. Just to let you know, they're still working on the infrastructure issues. It's just, I'll leave it at that. They're still working on the infrastructure issues. And that evening, let's see, I spoke at the American Legion Post 299 down the street here on Central regarding community partnerships. I met the gentleman from that lodge at Assembly Rodriguez's, and he asked if I would come speak. On the 14th, attended the League of California Cities Executive Board meeting with Assembly Member Steinorth, and regarding AB 1748, which is property taxation. This might be a bill you might want to take a look at. It seems on the surface, it seems like an excellent bill, but have to see where it goes. If it's, you can get bipartisan support. And then on the 15th, as was mentioned, the Student Government Day at the city and the Chino Valley Unified School District. We had students here from Chino High School, from Don Lugo, from Buena Vista, and Paul and I shepherded the council members, and as usual, a phenomenal job, especially the mayor. She's, way better than.
Ooh.
Anyway, they did a great job, and she ran the meeting very well. You met her.
Yes, outstanding girl.
Not Jennifer. I think it's Morales. Was the mayor, and it was a great event, and just compliment staff on putting that event together. They always do a fantastic job, and they did it again, and everyone had a great time. And that's it.
Okay, Councilman Rodriguez.
Okay, let me start with February 8th. I also attended the PD Police Department Awards, and I thought it was very interesting in the sense that the whole theme revolved around Plato's Republic. Myself having a degree in philosophy, it was very innovative in the sense that when we think about Plato, he's looking at ideals and ideas, looking for the ultimate virtue of, let's say, love, beauty, and so forth. So it's an example, as I've been saying in the past, of an OPI, opportunity for positive improvements, continuously looking for that ideal way of making the department, the police department, our first responder, be serviceable to our community and also for protection. And I was very, very happy to hear that analogy there. February 9th, I also attended the Chino Boxing Foundation Awards. There again, I reminded the boxers that they not only developed skills in boxing, and it's sometimes, learning that skill of the rope-a-dope, but there's the other skill that they've also learned through boxing is the skills of life, being able to transfer that ability to have and learn to look and listen and to move forward, and to continue that in their livelihood and their careers and in their civic responsibilities for the future, wherever they are living. February 10th, I attended with Tom and Gary, Freddie Rodriguez's coffee to meet, coffee and cake and pastries and so forth. The food was really good. And it was very informational. As Gary discussed, we talked about different issues that were pertinent at this time. For example, homelessness, clean streets, safety, and so forth. February 11th, I attended all day Our Lady of Guadalupe's church after Masses to continue with voter registration for the community there. I was there all day, and it was very good. We had a large number of people registered to vote. And as we know that the voting age kids can pre-register at 16. And we also had immigration support for those that were in need to know what to do legally to be here or not to be here. February 12th, I attended the Cultural Foundation meeting as the liaison. And as it was discussed, we went over some events that are coming up, the Palooza that will be coming up here in the lawn for Chino. February 15th, we went over that with the 38th Annual Student Government Day. And then Chino Valley Unified meeting was on February 15th also, and that was informational. February 19th, I attended, yesterday in fact, the Boy Scout meeting, Troop 207 at Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I offered the troop an opportunity to give them guidance for leadership and career development pathways. And the troop is one of the oldest in the valleys, Troop 207. And Matt will be happy to know that there's a large number of Eagle Scouts that have come out of this troop. Probably it's a very, very small troop, but as I was told by the Scoutmaster, they have eagle eyes when they go to those scouting events. They always win the awards. At this time, from yesterday, February 19th through the 4th, I have a cultural exchange with 3 students and teachers from a teacher from Beijing, China. And I think for my family, it's very important to always be aware of the different cultures throughout the world, to be able to bring to myself a better understanding how I can be applicable to understanding how people live and how we can collaborate and cooperate with each other. And then there's another reason why I want to be transparent and not have to register as a spy with the FBI and NSA and CIA. So that kills 2 birds at one stone. That's the end of my report.
Mr. George had one additional item he wanted to bring up.
Yes, I made an error, and I want to correct it. I said that the mayor was Jennifer. The mayor was Vanessa Morales from Chino High School. And as long as I've got the floor, just the students that were here, give them some recognition from Buena Vista High School: Joseph Ramirez, Christian Lares, Savannah Chafino from Chino High School. I mentioned Vanessa. We had Brenda Magdaleno, Christopher Torres, Jocelyn Aguilar, Samantha Custodio, Laura Ramirez, and from Don Lugo, Austin Holland, Reese Rizzo, Chase Elliott, Diego Gomez Zorate, Marcus Lopez, Amanda Bogarin, and Alyssa Lowell.
Terrific, thank you. Mr. Ballantyne. Mr. Galante.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Chief Hunstock.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for attending our award ceremony. It's always a great day for us at the police department, and I always take a lot of pride in celebrating the accomplishments of the men and women that comprise the Chino Police Department. We are very fortunate to have such a good, solid police department, and thank you for your support of public safety. Yeah. The Chino Police Department each year annually handles approximately 85 to a little bit higher, 95,000 calls per year for service. It's about somewhere right around 8,000, 8,500 calls a month. Somewhere in between all those calls, about 3,000, maybe 3,600 of those are 911 calls. So you can imagine how hard it is to vet down through that many calls for service. About 1% of the calls that we actually see that rise fit to elevating the work of some of our employees. It's a tedious process. It's one that comes from own employee recognition as well as supervisors really recognizing what we call organizational excellence when we see it in action. So it's difficult to select those employees, but they're certainly deserving of it. When you hear some of the remarkable work that they perform in service and just different what I would call true heroism in your community. That sometimes is unsung, and trust me, as police officers, that's the way they want it. They don't like a lot of acclaim for what it is that they do, so honoring them that way in that ceremony is also very meaningful. And of course, 4 very distinct award winners. I'd like to thank the champion for writing such a nice article about them this past week, and the Chief's Award of Distinction, Lieutenant Kevin Minson, our Police Officer of the Year, which was Officer Tricia Mayberry, our professional staff employee of the year, which is our facilities manager, Dean Carbone, and our volunteer of the year, most of you probably know him in George Sasso, who's been a member of our department for many, many years, and has just helped so many of our employees through his worship. So that concludes my report. It was a great day, and we were very proud. As you know, we actually took our name this year of Guardian Way, which I think is very symbolic of our mission and our commitment to our community. And I'll answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Well, I think Councilman Rodriguez mentioned it about the reference to Plato, but thinking of them as you did, the whole theme was guardians of the community.
That's
was
correct.
So appropriate, because that's exactly what they are. They are guardians of our community, and they work in partnership, and the whole department, the way it works together is phenomenal.
Thank you, Mayor.
Phenomenal. And they're all determined. to
Yes,
help
they
the
are.
Community.
And they do. They take this responsibility very seriously, and we are very proud to protect the city. And lastly, I just want to thank we work in a great community. We couldn't do this without the support of our community. As you know, I've talked about this before. I stated at Citizens Academy graduations, we do get, of course, our authority from the legislative law, but we absolutely get our consent and our support from our community members, and we could not be successful in our mission without that. So to our community members, thank you for all your support. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, I think when you listen to the media and the news reports about the trouble actually all across the world, we are so blessed to have such a partnership between the community and the police department also.
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And who do we have here from the fire department?
Good evening, Mayor. No report from fire this evening.
No report. All right. Well, with that then, we're going to adjourn our meeting to the next regular meeting, which will be held on March 6th
Good
at
week.
7 o'clock.
I'll give you a call.
With closed
And
session
the three of us
starting
can
at
get
6
together.
if necessary.
yeah.
And again, to remind everyone, we are adjourning the meeting in memory of Martin Salgado.